Thank you, Mayor, and I concur with Vice Mayor Jones when he said that we took a lot of time looking at this, and it's nowhere near what the time the staff had to look at it as well. And quite frankly, we've been looking at this problem for a while, ever since China decided to stop taking in, dirty plastic, right? So, stop recycling more of the, taking more of our stuff. And I, in fact, I've actually looked into different ways, wrote a couple memos, one of them even on thermal conversion, and that I'm hoping that we'll look into, as we are the innovation capital. Even in the garbage industry, we like to innovate, and I'm hoping that we look at ways that we can recycle our stuff here rather than send it all the way thousands of miles away to be recycled, and then we have to come and buy it back. I'm one of the districts that got a lot of the complaints. But the complaints that come to my office are those large item pickup things and being on hold. Under this new, I know that you guys worked a long time and you were almost at an agreement, right? And under this new agreement, who's going to be picking up those large items?
Councilmember, thank you. Our recommendation is that we bring that solution back to you as part of a separate action.
Separate action.
We really wanted to focus on the residential collection process, as that's the bulk of the work.
Okay, so we're not going to get calls. So they're not going to be responsible for that item. So I won't get those calls.
The current contracts are in place until June 30, 2021. So we have a couple years before we need to take and make any changes to that. So we'll work on that in the near term and figure out if it's the current contractors, a different model, or city staff.
Yeah, and I concur with some of those hold times, and I really appreciate Councilmember Jones's efforts to have some performance measures in place. And I think Councilmember Jimenez and I wrote a memo to go back to the negotiation table. We came up with 2 weeks. I'm okay with 30 days. Hopefully we'll get done in 2 weeks, but I think me and him, I don't want to speak on Councilmember Jimenez's behalf, but I'm going to support the underlying memo currently that's being voted on. I do have some concerns about the 3-year requirements. I know that a lot of these industries borrow a lot of money to buy equipment, and and you can't get a 3-year loan. So I'm wondering. I don't know. Maybe somebody from the industry can come tell me, or maybe Kip. You look like you're raring to go. How would this affect their ability to finance a new piece of sorting equipment or something like that?
Thank you, Councilmember Kip Harkness. My understanding is of the motion, at least staff's interpretation of the motion, is that we would still go ahead to enter into that longer-term contract that goes out to 2036 or whenever it is, because you do need to have that longer time horizon to make the investment. The idea is we'd use that interim period, those first 3 years, to sort of ramp up and guarantee that performance was happening. Ideally, that would be it. We'd have the performance would be happening, and we continue on with the long-term contract. If for some reason in that 3-year period they're not able to consistently meet those performance measures, then we'd have the ability to go back out to a competitive process. But the idea would be that would be within the framework of a long-term contract to allow them to make those kinds of long-term investments.
Okay, well, that's good. That makes me feel better. So you guys decided to go out and extend contracts instead of going to RFP. That was your original intent. Can you tell me why your first intention, and I'm not talking about what the current outcome is, but why did you originally say, let's try to negotiate an extension rather than go out to an RFP? What goes into the thought process? I'm not talking about CWS, I'm talking about for the whole thing.
And as you might imagine, this is a fairly large set of contracts. It's in fact one of, if not the largest outsourced franchise solid waste agreements in the country. And the haulers came to us and they said, we can provide better value because they wouldn't have to bid. They already had existing infrastructure. They already knew the city. They wouldn't have to replace all the garbage cans all at once. They wouldn't have to buy all new trucks all at once. So, so it was really the haulers coming to us and saying, let's talk with us before you put the bid docs out. So we came to council, and council said, yeah, that makes sense to us. Go ahead and negotiate with them. And as long as you would get better value at that table than going out to a competitive bid, then bring back that recommendation.
So I do remember that conversation, and the key word you said there was value. We thought that there was value in the process, that it would actually save our ratepayers money and save your staff time. Am I off base?
We anticipated getting better value than we would if we went out to bid.
Okay, that's the key. And so, I know that this was a large increase on their behalf, but it actually, because they were our lowest cost bidder to begin with, their increase, we're trying to compare them with people who were, or providers who were actually already higher than them, so that the statistics to me were a little skewed against them in their presentation. And I'm very sensitive to ratepayers. I mean, we've had water increases, we've had tax increases, we've had, you name it, we've had it. And I think our community is getting a little fee and tax fatigue. But I think it's important for us to be fair to the competitors. And if we go out to an RFP, do you think that we're going to have significantly lower rates than what's being presented by the three other carriers?
The bids as they came in would put CWS as the highest paid. So my opinion is that we would get bids comparable to the others.
To the others,
but
okay.
Part of the bid process is also looking at performance and commitments to customer satisfaction and meeting the contract program requirements.
Yes, no, I'm in total agreement with you on customer service, because that's the number one thing that we want as a consumer of this product, if you will. We want our garbage picked up, and we want our streets cleaned. And what happens to the garbage, most people don't care about, quite honestly. And I have to tell you, the education process in this effort has gone downhill. I mean, I see my own kids putting in pizza boxes into the recycling bin, and I've seen neighbors putting in diapers into the recycling bin. In fact, I've seen dozens of pictures from CWS and others about how people are using these bins as backup garbage cans. And so what's going to be done about the effort to educate the public on, what is recyclable and what isn't?
Thank you. The challenge that we're in is that the haulers have owned that education responsibility since 2007. So as we heard the first speaker today say, they haven't gotten any education on what to recycle, and they don't know what to do. That has not been the city's responsibility. That has been the responsibility of the hauler. We heard public comment that it's gotten worse in the last 15 years. Well, again, that's the tenure of the existing contract. So where we are today is to be able to look forward and make things better. Our recommendation is that the city take that responsibility, because we're not seeing that getting done, at least in the large part of the community, done in a way that is producing the desired result. And so we sort of took that off the table so that we could reach an agreement. So we could say, hey, we'll own that going forward, and then that way, if there is more trash in that recycling cart, we're going to pay you more, and we're going to double down, and we're going to change consumer behavior so that we're not paying that extra cost.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. I think it should have been our responsibility to begin with. Education should be our responsibility, and I'm glad that it's back in our hands. I'm looking forward to having a contract that is similar to what the other contracts are, so that we don't have to go out to an RFP, because I think it would be an expensive, time-consuming process one that may not bear fruit in the end, and that's why I'm supporting the memo from Vice Mayor Jones. And thank you guys for your staff.
Councilmember